Okay. Okay, so we're back on the tefillah now. We have some people here in person. We have a few people on Zoom, and also the recording is being made, so those that follow the recording can do so too. Now, we're going to discuss today a really, really interesting section of tefillah. It's interesting largely because of its history, which I did not know anything about until I started to research it last week. And I was amazed to find out what I found out. And I'm interested to know if any of you know the history of this prayer. And I'm referring to we're after the Akedah now. We've said the Akedah. And those that don't say the Akedah, when they finished saying the Yehiratzon that we talked about last week, you skip over to this bit, and that's where we carry on. All of us carry on. Nusach Sfard, Nusach Ashkenaz, whether you say the Akedah or you don't, after the Akedah, you go on to this bit, and that is Le'olam Yehei Adam Yorei Shamayim Beseter Uvagalui Umodeh al Ha'emet V'dover Emet Bilvavo Vayashkem Vayomar. Okay, you're familiar with that, Frank? You say that bit? Okay, now it's interesting because does it say that in the singers? I think it does say it in the singers before Ribon Kol Olamim. I think it does say it in the singers. In my recollections, it says it in small letters in the singers. No? Let me have a look. This is the green singers. Okay, no, it doesn't. Okay, so in the Koren, it's in slightly smaller letters. I think in the old singers and the blue singers, it's in very small letters. And I don't know if there's any significance to that. But interestingly, well, let's first of all translate it, and then I'm going to tell you something really interesting about this little bit. So the translation that we've got here is like this: Le'olam, which means always. It also means really. Okay, so and I think it's got both meanings here. Le'olam, always or really. Yehei Adam Yorei Shamayim Beseter Uvagalui. A person should be God-fearing or fearing of heaven, beseter, in private, okay, beseter, in private, uvagalui, and openly. So, in other words, this is telling you that you should be God-fearing at home when you're on your own and also out in public, because we know, don't we, that there are some people who are God-fearing in public, and when they get home, not so much, and then the other way around as well. So,
Rabbi, just to say that in the green edition, it is there. It's on the bottom of page 20 in my version. So
in the green singers,
it's a Saks version. It's the green.
Yeah.
UK.
Frank's here with that one in person as well. So we've got that.
You got it.
In the blue singers, if I'm not mistaken, in the blue singers it is there, but in small letters, and I'm going to come back to that in a sec. Let's just finish the translation. So really, a person should be fearing of heaven in private and in public. Umodeh al ha'emet. What does modeh mean?
Thank you.
It means yes. It means thank you, but it also means admit. And in this case, it means to admit. Umodeh al, or you would say, umodah. Okay. Umodeh al ha'emet, and you should admit. The Art Scroll translates it nicely as acknowledge. That's a good way of putting it. Acknowledge in there. Okay. Acknowledge the truth, which is, well, we're going to say what it is. V'dover emet bilvavo, and should speak out or say the truth bilvavo, in his heart. To say it in your heart. It is a bit of an oxymoron, that's true. But you know what it means. It means to say you should. It means that you should accept it in your heart. That's right. Vayashkem, and should arise early. We know that word from Avraham Avinu, don't we? We've just said it in the Akedah. He got up early to do the Akedah. Vayashkev, he should get up.
Boker.
Yeah. Vayomar, and he should say. And then we'll come back to what he should say in a minute. Now, very interestingly, thank you. This little parsha, this little La'olam Yehei Adam Yirei Shamayim, is missing from Rashi's Siddur. Rashi did not say this, and he specifically didn't say it. And the reason that he didn't say it is because of its history. It's really interesting because this little parasha is discussed in the Gemara. One second, Philip, I put the kettle on. Would you mind just making a cup of black tea for me, please? Yeah, black tea with one sweetener. Thank you very much. So in the Gemara, in the Yerushalmi, the Gemara, the Jerusalem Talmud, the Yerushalmi Gemara in Menachot, it says that a following thing. It makes a statement in the Gemara that says, God says that really, where there is drunken revelry and circuses, and people all sit in prosperity, whilst my Beit HaMikdash is destroyed, is a situation that should not be allowed to continue, and I should destroy the world. That's what the Gemara says. That's what God says. However, this is the point here. However, since Bnei Yisrael go to synagogues morning and evening and proclaim my oneness, in other words, they go to the shuls in the morning and they say Shema Yisrael, and they go to shul in the evening and they say Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, the God is one. Since Yisrael do that, the angels come along and say to God that the Jews have sanctified your name and therefore you shouldn't destroy the world. Really? You should be destroying the world because it's not right that there's people sitting here and enjoying themselves and having fun and going to the pub and going to the circus, and the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed. How can you have such a situation? But God relents from destroying the world, as it were, because the Jews go to the Beit Knesset, to the shul, morning and evening. That's what it says in the Gemara of Menachos in the Yerushalmi. Now, so if you look at what this next bit is all about, let's just carry on in the Siddur. If you look in your Siddur.
There weren't shuls till after the Bet HaMikdash, though, Johnny, were there? They didn't have a Bet Knesset till after the Bet HaMikdash.
Correct, but the Gemara Yerushalmi was written around about 400.
Okay.
So 300 years after the destruction. So at that time, they did have synagogues. Synagogues were already in use at that time. So I don't know. I'm sure I can't hear it.
Amen.
So if we just go into the Siddur and have a look what this La'olam Yehei Adam is an introduction to, you'll see, if you skip a few paragraphs, which is further introduction, what do we come to? We come to a bit that says, Ashreinu she'anachnu mashkimim umarivim erev avoka va'omrim pamayim b'chol yom Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Let's just translate that. Ashreinu. What does that mean?
We should be
Ashrei.
happy.
What's Ashrei? Happy. Ashreinu.
Yes.
We are happy. She'anachnu mashkimim. Same word as vayashkem. We get up early. Umarivim. Same word as mariv. We go in the evening. Erev vavoker. Evening and day. Va'omrim. And we say pa'amayim, twice. B'chol yom, every day. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. So this piece of davening is the embodiment of that Gemara in the Yerushalmi. That Gemara in the Yerushalmi says that God should really destroy the world. And the only reason it doesn't destroy the world is because the Jews go to shul morning and evening and proclaim his oneness. How do you proclaim the oneness of God? Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
His uniqueness.
His uniqueness. So this little parasha is about doing a Kiddush Hashem. We are sanctifying the name of God. So there's a problem here, because when you say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, you are in fact fulfilling a mitzvah, are you not? There is a mitzvah to say Shema Yisrael every day. That's a mitzvah in the Torah. So what do you do when you do a mitzvah? What do you do before you do a mitzvah?
Make a bracha.
Make a bracha, correct? And that's what we do. If you turn all the way over to after Baruch Hu, right? We get to Baruch Hu. Obviously, we're going to come to this in more detail, but just briefly, we come to Baruch Hu after Yishtabach. We say Kaddish. We come to Baruch Hu. And what do we then do? We start with a bracha. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, yot ha'or v'orech choshech, oseh shalom v'voret hakol. Then Hameir, which ends in Yotzer Hamaorot, it's a bracha. And then the bracha of Ahava Rabbah, or Ahavat Olam if you're in Nusach Sfard, which ends with Baruch atah Hashem habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava. What are those three brachot called? They're called the Birchat Kriyat Shema. They are the brachot that you say before you do the mitzvah of saying Kriyat Shema. Okay, now let's go back to where we're up to. We're about to say Shema, aren't we? We're about to say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. I've just said so. Ashreinu mashkimim u'marivin me'erev avach b'chol yom tovim pamayim bi'ahava. Shema Yisrael. Where's the bracha? The bracha comes afterwards, not before. Why? What is the bracha that comes afterwards?
I always think every morning when I say that, it says we say it twice, Shema, and this is the first of three. Because we say it in Shachrit and we say it in Arvit.
Okay, and that's what we've just said.
So maybe we'd have to make maybe we don't have to make a bracha on this one.
Okay. So Johnny has just pointed out that actually we don't say it twice. We say it three times. This is the first time. Later on in Shachrit after Baruch Hu is the second time. And the third time is Mariv. And I've just pointed out to you that this time we don't say a bracha in front of it. We say a bracha after it. And I'm asking you why. Okay, Frank has just quoted at me the bracha that we say after this Shema. After this Shema, we end up with, it's interesting because in Nusach Sfard, it's said without Hashem's name. In Nusach Sfard, it says Baruch HaMakadesh Shemo Barabim. Blessed is the one who sanctifies his name in public. Right. And what do we say? We say the same thing, except we use Hashem's name. We Ashkenazim say Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh et Shimcha Barabim. Blessed are you, Hashem, who sanctifies his name in public. HaMakadesh, HaMakadesh means the one who. It's just a different grammatical syntax, but the meaning is the same. So what's going on here? First of all, we've just said you say Shema twice, and we've pointed out that we say it three times. Secondly, in the morning Shema of after Baruch Hu, we say the brachot before the mitzvah, the way you're meant to, and in the evening as well, don't we? We say Hamariv Aravim and brachot before Shema. Over here, we don't say a bracha before, but we say a bracha afterwards. What's going on? So I'll tell you what's going on, and you won't guess it because it's really interesting, but it's not something you could guess. This Gemara that I quoted to you was written in the Yerushalmi, which was a couple of hundred years after the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. It was a time when it was forbidden. The Romans were forbidding the Jews to keep the Torah. Right? That's all we know. The story of what's his name, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, had to run off, go in a cave and hide because the Romans were after him. Okay. So this was a time when you weren't allowed to do these things. So what did people do? We spoke about it last week, actually. We spoke about it in the Seder night, remember? We asked the question, what were the rabbis doing in Bnei Brak? They were underground. How did they not know it was time to daven? Because they were hiding in a cellar. They had their Talmidim were standing guard outside. They were the ones that saw that it was light. Because you had to hide away. You wanted to learn Torah. You wanted to keep mitzvot. You had to do it in secret. Now it starts to make sense what we've just said. Let's go back. La'olam, really, really, and that's why I said it's translated as really as well as always. Yehei Adam Yirei Shamayim b'seter uvagaloi. A person has to be fearing of heaven, in other words, to do the Torah and keep the mitzvahs, both in public, both in private and in public. But there are certain times when you can't do it in public, right? Umoda el amet, and you have to admit the truth, acknowledge the truth in public, but you can't. Because if you do that in public, you're going to get killed. Okay? And so then we say, we'll come back to all the bits in the middle, but then we say, Ashreinu, how happy we are. Sha'anachnu mashkimim u'marivim. We are able to get up early and in the evening, okay, and now, interesting, we get up early and we're in the evening, Erev Avoka, in the morning and the evening, or evening and morning, Va'omrim v'amayim b'chol yom, and we say twice a day Shema Yisrael. Now, those of you that daven Nusach Sfard, Johnny, what have I missed out? I said the Nusach Ashkenaz.
The Vate Midrashot.
Uvate Chnesiot, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at the Nusach Sfard version, can I borrow your scissor a second, Goldie? If you look at the Nusach Sfard version, it says, Ashreinu shanu mashkimim u'ma'avirim bevate chnesiot uvate midrashot.
Because they didn't have to be in.
U'miyachdim shimcha b'chol yom tamid. So the Nusach Sfard version is recognizing the fact that it's a massive deal for us to be able to go. We should recognize it and thank Umodeh al ha'emet. Acknowledge the truth, but also thank Hashem for the fact that we can go to the Bet Midrash and the Bet Knesset. So now when you understand the background to this prayer, you understand what the words are all about. It's not just, oh, great, you know, it's good that we can say Shema. No, it's good that we can say Shema in private and in public.
Because they could do it in public in the Sephardi places where the Sephardi Jews were.
They're correct.
Because we were Rashi, persecuted by the Muslims and we were...
Rashi lived, and we've said this many, many times, Rashi lived at the time of the Crusades when things were not so great.
Yeah. But it depended where you lived also.
Rashi was right he was in the Rhineland. It was right in the thick of it. So you can see now. Sorry, yes, Frank.
Just saying, by the time we get to we're actually recognizing that we have that freedom, we have that opportunity. So if we're already changing, saying, but we're recognizing, then why don't we actually say Barakah?
Okay. So Frank, just for the recording, because probably wouldn't be able to hear it. Frank says, well, okay. That's fine. We're recognizing this, and we're saying that we're recognizing God's oneness. Why don't we say a bracha? And that's a very, very good question. And the reason we don't say a bracha is because if you say Shema Yisrael now with kavanah, you have fulfilled the mitzvah, and you've got a problem then, because then you cannot go and do the brachot later on after Baruch Hu, because you've already done the mitzvah. How can you say a bracha on a mitzvah you've already done? Right? You can't take the lulav and then go home and say a bracha. So that means that this recitation of Shema is not fulfilling the mitzvah of declaring God's oneness. Because if it was, your question would be correct. Why aren't we saying a bracha? And if it was, you wouldn't be able to say the bracha later on. You'd have missed the opportunity. So, when you say Shema Yisrael at this point, you are not fulfilling your obligation, and you should actually have in mind, there's some poskim say, you should actually have in mind that you are not fulfilling this, the mitzvah of Shema Yisrael with this. What is this a bracha on? You said it before, Frank. What is this a bracha on? Baruch atah Hashem, mekadesh et shimcha barabim. It's a bracha on Kiddush Hashem. It's a bracha that we are saying a bracha for the fact that we are able to go out in public and say Shema Yisrael. Not that we are using this opportunity now to do that mitzvah of Shema Yisrael. No, that's coming a bit later after Baruch Hu. Now we are making a bracha. We're thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we have an opportunity to be Mekadesh et Shimcha, that we are have an opportunity to sanctify his name, which brings us back to the Gemara in the Yerushalmi. What did I say before? That I said that the angels come along and say to God, look at those wonderful Bnei Yisrael. Look at what they're doing. They're going to shul morning and evening, and they are sanctifying your name. That's what the Gemara says. They are sanctifying your name, so you should sanctify their name and don't destroy them. So this is a bracha on the sanctification of Hashem's name, on Kiddush Hashem. This is not a bracha on Kriyat Shema, because if it was, your question would be correct. It should be before, because we're about to say Shema Yisrael. So when we say La'olam Yehei Adam Yirei Shamayim, what we ought to be thinking about is how fortunate we are to be in our generation when we can. And that's why on this particular occasion, I like the Nusach Sfard version that stresses that you go to say your Shema Yisrael in the Bet Knesset and the Bet Midrash, because it fits in with the Gemara and it fits in with this prayer, which is that we are thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for that opportunity that we have, and that we're free to do it in public as well as in private. Yes, Frank.
We have enough the latest time for reading the Shema every morning. But I was under an impression, you're now changing that, which was sometimes in shul you're going to daven and get to Kriyat Shema after that latest time, and therefore you will fulfill the mitzvah of Shema here.
You're right.
And you're saying specifically, no, you can't.
You're right. You're right. You're right. This is a B'di Eved situation. L'chatchila, you don't fulfill your obligation here because you're going to do it later on with the main Shema, with its brachot. Okay? But you're quite right. If you're in a situation where you will miss the time of Shema, by the way, when is the time of Shema? How long have you got to say Shema?
In the Torah Titbits.
In the Torah Titbits, it tells you. Yes, that's true. And how do the Torah Titbits know, Johnny? They go online onto My Zmanim. No, the halacha is you've got to say your Shema within the first 3 halachic hours of the day. Okay? Do you know what a halachic hour is? You know what a halachic hour is? Okay, and we think that an hour is 60 minutes, right? That's correct. Okay, so I'll just say that out loud for the recording. Frank said that you take the daylight hours and you divide them into 12. So a halachic hour in the winter is shorter than a halachic hour in the summer. So in the summer, a halachic hour can be as long as about 70 odd minutes. And in the winter, a halachic hour can be as short as 45, 50 minutes. And it depends where you live, of course. If you live in one of those places up in the a very high northern latitude. So Norway, northern Sweden, you know, where Shabbos comes in March and goes out in November because it never gets dark. So halakhic hour is the daylight hours split into 12. And you have to say the Shema within the first 3. So if, let's say, sunrise is 6, or daylight begins at 6, and it's at 6, it ends at 6 the next day. So let's say you've got 12 hours of daylight time. An hour would, and halakhic hour would be 60 minutes. 60 minutes, because you divide it by 12. Yeah. If, on the other hand, for example, in England, in the middle of the summer, the daylight begins at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and it goes on till like 9. Let's say 9 o'clock at night. So what's that? That's 17 hours. Divide by 12. One halakhic hour would be an hour and 20 odd minutes. Yeah, almost an hour and a half. So then you would multiply that by 3, and then that's where you have your Shema. So Frank is right that if you would miss the Zman for Shema, it's better to do it here with Kavanah and without the bracha, although it would be even better to have say the bracha as well. Now, the question is, when you go to shul in England in the summer, on a Shabbos morning, almost always in the depths of the summer, the height of the summer, you will be too late to say Shema by the time you get to it at 9:45, right? You're past it. The Sof Zman Kriyat Shema in England in the summer can be as early as 8:30, 9:15 sometimes. So you're then meant to say the Kriyat Shema at home before the Zman is over.
So not with a minyan specifically.
No, it's not obligatory to say the Shema with a minyan. Everything is better with a minyan, but it's not obligatory. So you can see now with that background of the Gemara in Yerushalmi, which talks about the idea that they didn't have the permission, they didn't have the ability to go in public. You understand now why La'olam Yehei Adam Yirei Shamayim B'Seter, in private and in public. Modeh, and we're thanking us for that. And then we say Ashreinu. We are thankful, we're happy, we're grateful for that opportunity that we can go to the Bet Knesset and the Bet Midrash freely and say our Shema. So that's the background to that particular bracha, and it's not the bracha. It's not a bracha on the Kriyat Shema. It's a bracha on Kiddush Hashem, and the shul is the most important point because the temple has been destroyed by this stage of the Gemara, and of course we don't have a Bet Knesset, a Bet Midrash, a Bet Mikdash. Where did all the service of Kodesh Baruch Hu happen before that? At the Bet Mikdash. The Bet Knesset took over as the Mikdash Ma'at, as the place where this was doing. And as I said before, Rashi's Siddur does not have the Le'olam bit. It goes straight into Ribon Kol Ha'alamim, which we're going to discuss in a minute. And the reason that he didn't have it in was that Rashi did not like the idea that we should only do these things in secret. He didn't like the idea of acknowledging that we should do these only things in secret. And we say, if you think about it, Baruch Atah Hashem Hamakadesh Et Shimcha. Barabim, why? You ever thought about that? I never thought about that. Why don't we just say, blessed are you Hashem Hamakadesh Et Shimcha. We sanctify his name. Barabim, in public. Again, now you understand why the in public is there, because it's a big deal. Yeah. It's not a big deal for us. It should be if we stop and think about it. I mean, we've just had Holocaust Memorial Day, and we've all been thinking about that a little bit and watching stuff on that. people went through there in hiding, etc. Those people that were hidden away, they never had an opportunity to do Mekadesh et Shimcha Barabim, did they? So again, this is something that we, when we're davening, need to bear in mind, that the origins of this prayer and the history of our people throughout the generations has been such that its poignancy is the fact that they couldn't do it in public and we can. And that's an extra thing to think about when we're saying these prayers, and that's why it's in there at that time. If we have a look now,
Oscar puts a footnote onto that. Barabim saying, "May the time come when no Jew need ever fear to express his Jewishness openly."
There we go. Exactly
Lovely.
the same. Yeah, exactly
Lovely.
the point. Exactly the point. Now
Exactly.
the question is, have we reached that point? Have we reached the point where we are able to express our Kiddush Hashem in public without fear?
That's where we live.
Exactly.
We have.
I don't think it's the case all over the world, though, is it?
No.
No. If you go on campus in America these days, or in Britain as well, it's not a pleasant place to be a Jew openly. Did we ever think that we would say that in a place like America, land of the free, or in a place like Britain, which gave refuge to people running away from the pogroms, etc.? Did we ever think that on the university campuses of those places we would not be free?
Worse and worse.
And it is getting worse and worse.
The future's going to be bleak.
It's getting worse and worse. And that's why when we say these things, we should not take it for granted. We should not take it for granted. And that I think is a really interesting historical point on this particular prayer, which I don't know about any of you. I certainly didn't know anything about that until very recently. So let's go back into the Siddur now. Really, a person should fear God in private and in public, thank him and say the truth in his heart. But again, this is talking about the people like the Anusim. They had to say it in their heart, didn't they? Because they were in an even worse situation. Not only were they not allowed to practice in public, they had to pretend to be Christians and do all the stuff that they had to do to prevent them from being orthodoxe and all that. So, lo ribon kol haolamim. Yeah, because Rashi doesn't like it.
Because the thing occurred to me is that this is actually a statement rather than a prayer, that one paragraph. Because in everything else we're talking about atar, we're talking about you and we. And here, there's no we or you. This is a statement for mankind. There's no.
Yeah, it's an introduction, isn't it? It's a statement of introduction. Yeah.
Not a prayer at any point.
Yeah. Although the way that Art Scroll translates it, it could be a prayer, and I'll read it to you in a minute. What does your translation say?
It says a person.
Okay, is that what yours says?
Yeah.
Okay, so the sax singer, just read out the translation, nice and loud so everyone can hear.
A person should always be God-fearing, privately and publicly, acknowledging the truth and speaking it in his heart. He should rise early and say. So
it's a statement a person should do. Okay. Now, I imagine the Koren would say the same because it's also translated by Rabbi Sachs, and it does. It says a person should always, and that's a statement, as Frank says. However, the Art Scroll has translated it differently, with a bit of poetic license, a little bit of translator's license, and has actually made it, Frank, into a bit more of a prayer than a statement. And he says like this. This is the Art Scroll translation. Always let a person be good, God-fearing privately. So it's like a prayer to God. Let everyone be private. In other words, Yehei Adam, a person, it's like Yehi Ratzon, may it be your will. So the Art Scroll have translated.
Yehei is a wish. Yehei. I don't think that's correct, because Yehei means it should be.
Yes, this is what exactly the word that uses. Should be, a person should be. So it depends how you state it. I agree with you, Frank. I think it is a statement. I think the Art Scroll have probably acknowledged that and turned it into, I mean, I don't think it's an inaccurate translation they've used. I think they've used a different translation, and they are saying using it as a prayer as opposed to a statement. And I think the statement works given the background, but you could also argue that given the background and the fact that we are able to do these things, it's a thanking of HaKadosh Baruch Hu for that ability to do so. So and the reason that it's not it's in maybe the reason it's in small letters in the blue singers is just a printing thing. I've no idea, but what I can tell you is that it's not in Rashi's Siddur, and he Dafka didn't have it in. My phone is about to die now. I've probably managed to just get through the end of the shir before it packs in. Okay, so let's go into the next bit. Ribon Kol Olamim, Master of the Universe. Lo al tzidkotenu, anachnu mapilim tachanunim lefanecha. Not on tzidkotenu.
Thanks to.
Tzidkot.
Thanks to our righteousness.
No. Lo al tzidkotenu. Not on our righteousness. Tzidkot is righteousness. Tzidkotenu, our righteousness. Not. Where are you up to? You are up to page before, just at the top of the page there. Ribon Kol Olamim, Master of the Universe. Not on our righteousness. Anachnu mapilim tachanunenu lefanecha. What does that mean? Anachnu mapilim.
Do we spread? Do we?
Nofel. It comes from the word nofel. What does nofel mean? To fall.
Yeah, but
Tachanunenu. What's tachanun?
Our
Supplications,
yes.
or prayers, or
Begging.
begging. That's a good word. Supplication is begging. So mapilim tachanunenu. Do we fall on our supplications? When do we fall on our supplications? What is nefilat apayim? Nefilat apayim. Falling on our on our nose. You do it every day. Well, most.
When you
Tachanun.
genuflect.
No, tachanun.
Yeah.
Tachanun. What do we do for the tachanun?
Yeah, you cover your face.
We
Yeah.
fall.
Yeah.
We fall when our noses hit the desk, right?
Yeah.
Nefilat apayim. Tachanun. When we put our hand down and we say tachanun. What's tachanun? Supplication. Same word as here. That is called nefilat apayim. So Vayoma David al Gad, which we'll come to at the end of Shemona Esra, when we do tachanun, that's called nefilat apayim, falling on our faces, and we're falling on our faces in supplication. We're begging. So here we're saying we're begging you lefanecha, in front of you, not on our righteousness. In other words, we're not coming to you and say, I beg you, Hashem, because we are so righteous, then you should do X, Y, and Z. No, lo al tzidkotenu. We are begging you, but not because we're so righteous. We're recognizing here, it's a sort of double negative in a way. We're recognizing that we are not that righteous. It's the same sort of thing we say, or at least the Nusach Sfard says, before Tachanun. When we say Vidui, what do we say? We're not brazen enough to say, Tzadikim anachnu v'lo chatanu, right? We are tzadikim and we haven't sinned. Aval anachnu v'avotenu chatanu. Yes, we have. So we're saying here, Master of the Universe, we are falling on our faces now. We're begging you for something, but we're not begging you out of our own righteousness. In other words, we're not relying on our own righteousness. What are we relying on? Ki, rather. Key can mean all sorts of things. It can mean because, it can mean that, it can mean when. Here it means rather than. Ki al rachamecha harabim. What's rachamim, Goldie? Pity, mercy. Harabim, great mercy. We're relying not on our tzidkus, we're relying on your great mercy. Why? because we don't deserve it. And now we're going to say why we don't deserve it.
Sinners.
What's the next bit? Ma anachnu.
To the video.
What are we?
To Johnny.
Mechayenu.
Very technical.
What's our life worth? Machastenu. What is our kindnesses that we do? Matzidkotenu. What righteousness do we have? Ma yeshuatenu. What right do we have to salvation?
Now be careful, Sharon.
Ma kochenu.
Careful. Be careful.
How much strength do we have? Ma gvuratenu. How much gvura, how much greatness, strength,
Power.
do we have? And then we say, Ma nomar lefanecha.
What should we say?
What shall we say in front of you? Adonai Eloheinu v'Elahei Avotenu. What should we say in front of you? We're garnished. We are nothing. Our lives are worth nothing. Our tzidkus is worth nothing. Our koyach is nothing. Our strength is nothing. We're nothing. Hello, kol hagiborim. Hello. Hello. What does hello mean? Hello.
That's
Hello. It means
that.
it means surely.
Yes.
Yes, surely kol hagiborim. All the great people, all the strong people, the wonderful, mighty people, ka'ayin lefanecha,
Nothing.
are like, what's ayin with an aleph, not with an ayin?
Nothing.
Nothing. Ayin. Ain. Same word as an ain. Nothing. Not. Ka'ayin. They're like nothing. Lefanecha. All the mighty people in the world are like nothing in front of you. V'anshei Hashem. V'anshei Hashem, and the men of name, meaning those
Reputation.
those of reputation, nicely put, Philip. V'anshei Hashem, men of reputation. Kalo hayu. It's as if they weren't anything. Garnished.
They didn't exist.
It's a very famous sort of, well-known Yiddish
That's
expression.
who got it from.
Ich bin garnished. You know the joke. It's the guy goes into shul and the Rav stands up on Yom Kippur and he goes in front of the Aron Kodesh and he says, Rebbeinu Shalom, ich bin garnished. I'm falling on your mercy. Ich bin garnished. Chazan comes along and says, Rebbeinu Shalom, ich bin garnished. I rely on you. The Shamas comes along. Ich bin garnished. Gabba comes along. Ich bin garnished. Fellow comes in from the back. Goes in front of the Aron Kodesh. Ich bin garnished. Another fellow says, look who thinks he's garnished. Ich bin garnished. So that's what we're saying here. Ich bin garnished. V'chachamim, and all the wise people in the world, kivli mada. What's that mean?
They have no knowledge.
Like beli. What does beli mean?
They have no
Without,
knowledge.
correct. Mada, without knowledge. So all the wise people, they're also garnished. They're also garnished.
Science.
Yeah. Unavonim from the word bina, those who have understanding. Kivli haskel. It's like they don't have any seichel. See the word seichel in there? Haskel, same word. So all we're saying here is that everybody in this world, the greatest people in this world, compared to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, are garnished. Ki rov ma'aseihem tohu. Because the majority of their actions, tohu, are empty. Tohu vavohu. Yeah, beginning of Bereshit bara Elokim. In the beginning, everything was tohu vavohu. Tohu means emptiness, void. So the majority of the actions of men, of mankind, are empty. What are they empty of? They're empty of any substance, because most people, their actions are not altruistic, they're not done for the right purposes, and they have no meaning. Which is what us basically saying we're garnished.
It's the exact same phrase it appears over here.
Yes, it is. It's the end of Vidui. At the end of Vidui. Yeah, the end of Vidui on Yom Kippur. You're right. We have a very, very similar wording. And again, the idea being that we are throwing ourselves on the mercy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because actually we're not deserving, aren't we? That's what it says at the end. I'm not worthy of anything. It says at the end of Vidui. It's better that I wouldn't have even been born. Now that I have been born, I'm worth nothing. And so please, Yeah. So please don't punish me. Forgive us, but not al yedei yisurim. I don't want any tsoros with it. That's what we say at the end of it.
Pain.
Don't know. Probably because this is an old filler. This is a very old filler. So let's just finish off this section. So kirov masem, so the majority of the actions of men are empty. Vimei chayehem, and the days of their life. Hevel lefanecha. What's hevel?
Hevel is nothing.
Okay, so this is interesting. Hevel is described as hevel havalim. Kohelet. What does he say? You should know this. Hevel havalim. Vanity of vanities. Okay, Hevel. Rabbi Sachs. Hevel, Rabbi Sachs says that Hevel actually is a breath, a shallow breath. Hevel havalim means that the whole world is like a shallow breath. So what we're saying here is vimei chayehem, and the days of the lives of men, it's as if it's nothing. It's just one little breath. Lefanecha, in front of you. Compared to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're garnished. Same again. Umotar ha'adam min ha'behema ayin. And the eminence.
Better than that.
Yeah, a man is no better than an animal. The mutar, that which is better in a person over an animal, ayin, is nothing. In other words, we're garnished. Lots of different ways of saying garnished. Ki hakol havel.
When you read this prayer,
Wait.
you get a bit depressed.
Correct, you do. It's a build-up, Philip. It's a beautiful literary build-up. Listen to it. What comes next? So we've said, Ribono Kol Ha'olamim, the Master of the Universe. We are nothing. We've said we're nothing in all sorts of different ways. The message is Ich bin agonish. Right? What comes next? Aval. No, all right.
Right here. Levad.
Yeah, that's an extra bit that we don't hear. We're over here, Aval.
Oh, we skipped that.
Yeah, that's not in Nusach Ashkenaz. It's just more garnished, okay? The extra bit that Goldie's pointing out in the Nusach Sfard, I'll have some of that as well, please, when you finish. The Nusach Sfard bit, there's an extra few bits of garnish. We haven't got on the Shama, it's worth nothing. More garnished, okay? Ich bin garnished. Now, next comes Aval. But. Now, when you say but, what does that mean? It means what I've just said, there's another side to it. There's a flip side to what I've just said. But, aval, but, despite the fact that we are garnished, anachnu amacha, we are your people, b'nei beritecha. We are members of your covenant. We're your Brit. We are signatures to your Brit. B'nei Avraham. We are the sons, the children of Abraham. Ohavacha, the one who you loved. Shenishbata lo b'Har HaMoriah, who you swore to at Har HaMoriah. Zera Yitzchak Yechido. We are the seed of Yitzchak, his only one. Shene'akad al gav HaMizbeach, who was bound on a Mizbeach. We are Adat Yaakov. We are the congregation of Jacob. Binecha, your son. Bechorecha, your firstborn. How do we know that Yaakov was his firstborn?
He came in after Esav. He was holding Esav's heel.
Not what it's talking about. Saying Hashem's firstborn. What did we say in that last week's Sedra? Beni, Bechori, Yisrael. Yisrael is my firstborn son. To make Havatecha, from the love that you loved him, i.e., the Bnei Yisrael, Umi Simchatcha shesamachta bo, and from the simcha that you gave to him, Karata et Shemo Yisrael Vishurun. You named him, you gave him the name, talking about Yaakov now, Yisrael, gave him the name Yisrael, which means Yashar El, straight with God, and Yeshurun. Yeshurun is another name for Israel. Israel, another name for Israel is Yeshurun. And what does the root of Yeshurun? Yashar, straight. So we have just said really, this is what a person should say. I'm agonished. But despite the fact that I'm agonished, God, I'm your people. Ich doch Ephes. Bin ich doch Ephes? Because I am. Why am I Ephes? Why am I something? Because I'm your son. I'm B'nai Brit with you. I'm Abraham's son. I'm Yitzchak's son. I'm Yaakov's son. All those people that you promised things to.
It's all passive. It's not active. It's all passive.
We are flying on the coattails of our fathers at this point. Okay? So we're saying, really, La'olam, that's why I translated La'olam as really, because it fits in with the whole tefillah here. Really, ich bin agonished. I'm a nothing. But I'm not a nothing. I'm an epis. I'm a something. Because I'm a Jew. I am a Jew. and I've got history. And my soul is not just me. I am a Ben Avraham. I'm a Ben Yitzchak, and I'm a Ben Yaakov. And I'm part of Bnei Yisrael, Yeshurun. Next paragraph. Lefichach. Therefore, you see how one thing follows the other. You see these three paragraphs follow one after the other beautifully. I'm a nothing, but I'm a something. And therefore, lefichach, anachnu chayavim lehodot lecha. We are chayav. What's chayav? Obliged. We are obliged. Okay, it's an obligation. We are obliged lehodot lecha, to thank you. And the other word, the other translation of lehodot, to acknowledge you, to admit, to acknowledge you. Ulashabechacha, and to praise you. Ulafa'ercha, and to glorify you. Pa'er means glorification. Ulavarech, and to bless. Ulakadesh, and to sanctify. Again, we come back to what we were praying for before. Or we're going to say the end of the bracha, which is sanctifying our name. Why? Because we can. V'latet shevach v'hodaya lishmecha, and to give shevach, praise, v'hodaya, and thanks, lishmecha, to your name. And then we say the beginning, the entrance into the Shema. Ashreinu, happy are we. Ma tov chelkenu. How great, how good is our chelek? What's our chelek? Our portion. Our portion. How great is our portion? Uman na'im goralenu. And how beautiful, how pleasant is our lot. Goralenu. Goral is a lot. Yeah. How great, how pleasant is our lot. Uma yafa yerushatenu. How beautiful is our Yerusha, our inheritance. What have we inherited? Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, that's what we've just said. How beautiful is that? And then, Ashreinu, Baruch Hashem, how happy we are. She'anachnu mashkimim, we get up early, and we get up, and we say in the evening, in the Batei Midrashot and the Batei Knasiot, Erev Vavoka, evening and morning, Va'omrim, and we say Pamayim b'chol yom, twice a day, and then we shray out, Keshray, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. We are then in a position when we have said, what have we just said? Really, a person has to do this in private and in public. Ich bin agonished. But I'm not agonished. I'm a something. I'm part of Bnei Yisrael. And therefore I'm obliged to thank and praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to say what? Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Now, you'll find that some Sidurim, notably the Blue Singers, does not have the parasha of Ve'ahavta. The green one doesn't either. Okay, it goes straight into the next bit, which is Atahu. The reason being that this is not the saying of the Shema. It's not the saying of the three parashas of Shema, as we've just said earlier on. Most Sidurim, Art Scroll does, pretty sure Koren does. See? Koren does say Ve'ahavta. Although it's got here, some congregations say the entire first paragraph of the Shema at this point. If there is a concern that the Shema will not be recited within the prescribed time, then all three paragraphs should be said. Okay? Exactly as Frank had said. But only if you're worried about the time. So, Shema Yisrael we've said, and then we say the Atahu Again, this is at the end of the bracha here we're coming up to. Atahu ad shelo nivra ha'olam. You were before the world was created. You existed. Atahu misha nivra ha'olam. You're there after the world's created. Atahu ba'olam hazeh. Atahu la'olam haba. You will be here in this world. You'll be here in that world. Kadesh et shimcha al makdishei shemecha. Sanctify your name on those who sanctify your name. And let's have great salvation shall be risen up. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh et shimcha barabim. That is the conclusion. Blessed are you, Hashem, who sanctifies your name in public. So you can see that's the end of that ketah, the end of that section, which begins with la'olam and ends with mekadesh et shimcha barabim. That is one section based on the Gemara in Yerushalmi in Menachot, based on the fact that they weren't allowed to do it in public, and we can. And you want to, tomorrow morning, when you read that, you have to say to yourself, Ich bin a Gornisht, aval ich bin doch etwas. I'm also a something. I'm a Jew. I'm part of a long line of Jews going back to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And therefore I have an obligation to sanctify Hashem's name. And I am so lucky, Ashreinu, she'anachnu mashkimim u'ma'arivim b'vatech notziyot u'vati midrashat erev avoch b'amrim b'chol yom pa'amayim Shema Yisrael. And I can say twice a day in public, if I want to, Shema Yisrael. And that is not something to be sniffed at. Okay, that is something to be treasured, something to be thinking about when you start your davening in your day and appreciated. This is something that, somebody said to me, if I did everything that you said in your tefillah shir, I wouldn't be able to keep up at all. I'd have to start Shacharis at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'd still be saying it when it was time for mincha. That may well be, but you know what? Just once in a while, stop and think what we're meant to do and what these things mean. The whole point of this series of shiurim is that understanding should be there, so that on the occasions that it hits you, because it doesn't every day. Sometimes you just gabble it off, and you got your mind on other things you shouldn't do, but yeah, that's the way it is. But there will be times when you are uplifted, and if you understand where it comes from, what it's all about, then perhaps we can get a little bit more out of it. So we'll stop there because time's up.
Does your Siddur say Baruch atah ad Hashem b'kadesh?
Yes, that's Nusach Ashkenaz, Johnny.
Oh, okay.
Nusach Sfard says without Hashem's name, Baruch HaMekadesh Shema Barabim.
Okay, I thought
the meaning's the same, of course.
Yes.
The Nusach Ashkenaz version has Hashem's name in it.
Yeah,
and you'll notice actually that when we say it in shul here, there are one or two people that answer Amen when they say Baruch HaMekadesh Shema Barabim. And the only one or two people that answer Amen are people who daven Nusach Ashkenaz, because they're used to it being a proper, inverted commas, bracha with Hashem's name, so they say Amen to it, even though it doesn't have Hashem's name in it. Michael Leaf always says Amen, and Ruby always says Amen, because they're used to Baruch atah Hashem HaMekadesh Shema Barabim. There's no harm in saying Amen, even if it's not got Hashem's name in it. But the Nusach Sfard daveners like you will not be used to saying Amen, because it's not got Hashem's name in to oblige an Amen. Okay?
Yeah.
Any questions?
It does actually say, "Blessed are you, Hashem."
Blessed are you, Hashem. Baruch atah Hashem.
Therefore, that is Hashem's name.
That's right. But in the Nusach Sfard version, it just says Baruch, blessed. Doesn't mention Hashem's name. There's two different versions.
Who's that, Ruby?
No, that's Warren.
Oh,
Okay, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Johnny.
Thanks,
You're
Johnny.
welcome. See you all next week.
Please God. Please
Bye,
God.
that's all.
take it easy.